Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a trauma-informed 501c3 training by myself, Lisette London, and Mrs. Veronica Alarcon. Say hello,
Good
Veronica.
morning. Hello.
So we are here to do the presentation to talk about the importance of being a trauma-informed 501c3 or just a 501 or a nonprofit, for-profit, whatever organization you have. We're going to be specifically talking about nonprofit for certain points because we are seeing a lot of nonprofits opening up, but we're also going to be talking about the LLC, sole proprietor, things like that as well. So we're hoping you have your pen and paper ready to take notes because we are going to be very interactive. So here we go. We're going to go to the next screen. We're going to talk about the schedule. So we are doing a 3-part webinar, okay? So as we mentioned, and the 3-part webinar is going to be starting today, right? We are in part 1, so welcome, right? And in our part 1, we have 2 sessions. This is our 9 o'clock session. It was a 2 o'clock session. In our 9 o'clock, today we're going to be talking about engaging and advocating in a pandemic world. What does that look like? Really focusing on the trauma aspect of it all. And then at the 2 o'clock, we're going to be looking at a trauma-informed intro to why. Why did we choose to start a nonprofit? Looking at nonprofit roles and responsibilities. The next part, it will be November 12th at 9 o'clock. Again, hiring and onboarding. And at 2 o'clock will be training, assessments, and education. And the last installment for part 3 will be November 26th. Yes, it is the day after Thanksgiving. And it will be at 9 o'clock, and we'll talk about the benefits of a trauma-informed workplace and a consultant. And at 2 o'clock, we'll talk about the fundings, ratings, and grants. So this is a schedule. This is what we've been looking at. If you are interested in registering for the next parts and sessions, go ahead and do so. We will provide the link in the chat. We're also having it. You can find us the registration on LinkedIn, or you can even go to Eventbrite and type in a trauma-informed 501c3, and the registration page will pull up. So we're going to move on.
Okay.
Perfect. So we are starting again with part 1. So again, engaging and advocating in a pandemic world. So today, this is the first session. And so we're just going to go right in and jump into our training. So the organizational problem is when we're looking at a trauma-informed is to discuss the trends that the industry is implementing while having a dialogue with our colleagues in order to support and advocate for one another. So what does that mean? One of the things that we are seeing in a pandemic world, especially during this next wave, right? We've dealt with so many waves of this pandemic, is the fact that we have seen the destruction of the external, right? Distractions, external injuries of our traumatic world, our global trauma that we have experienced, right? And we have seen how it has impacted our structure, right? And when I mean structure, I mean the process. Okay, you're working for an organization, you're coming to work, you're providing the services for your clients, and then you're doing your case notes or you're doing your legal notes, whatever field you're in, and it disrupted the functionality of it, that a lot of us are unable to connect with our coworkers. We understand we're all kind of dealing with the same things. However, it's like, well, I don't know if you're dealing with the same information or the same feelings that I'm feeling. So there's now having this disconnect, right, that is happening. So one of the things that we're dealing with is the fact that the engaging aspect. How do I engage? How do I advocate when we're dealing with a traumatic experience in an organizational field, right? How are we looking at that and structuring it to look at ways of supporting ourselves and advocating for ourselves, but also advocating for our clients, our coworkers. And that is actually looking at the understanding the behavioral impact that we deal with. If we are impacted, which we all were, no one was exempt from this pandemic. We have all been impacted in some way or another. Some can have been minute, some can have been extreme, right? It doesn't matter the range, everybody has been impacted. And because of that, we engage with each other differently. I don't know if you ever noticed when somebody cuts you off, right? And you're driving, what is your first response? Some people say, oh man, okay. Or some others like, oh, that could have been bad. Some just don't say anything. Others get so angry and frustrated. So our behaviors are come out in the way we engage in how we perceive the immediate impact that we're dealing with. So it's the same when we're looking at the traumatic experiences outside the world. So this is very important to understand as we move forward into the training, because if we don't understand how we are impacted, we won't understand how we need to engage one another. And how we have been engaging one another can be very difficult, right? Or if you haven't even paid attention to it, right? Oftentimes we begin to engage one another a little bit different. And people are like, you seem different. What's going on? What's happening? You're like, nothing's happening. I'm good. And or your clients start to feel like they can't come to you, or they can't really address or talk to you in a way. So it becomes very it just becomes very disengaging, right? You start to see and feel that the organization, right, doesn't really care for their staff or care for their clients. And when all in reality is because we're not understanding the behaviors after we've been impacted. So hopefully that makes a little sense, because again, we're going to go in depth into the next slide and how we deal with that. So now it's just time to analyze. I want us to take a moment and really think what will happen if you implement a trauma-informed or trauma-focused approach to your business model, right? So a trauma-focused approach is we understand it, an event has occurred. The event has occurred. It has impacted our reality. It has impacted our functionality. It has impacted the way we provide something to someone. So because of the trauma that has been impacting us, how have we been reacting to it? How have we been supporting our staff and clients, or even ourselves during this process? And if you take a moment to really analyze this process, do you have anything in place to really help your business model during this process? And I get these questions all the time. And this is before this is before the pandemic. I'm going to share a story. One of the things that I saw, because I worked with being a traumatologist and dealing with being trauma focused, I saw the need for trauma focused approaches within business structure. And why I say that, we have organizations, we have different fields that have a high turnover rate. And they have a high turnover rate because there's a lack of trauma focused approach implemented into the business structure, the way they do business. And because of that, we then see how it impacts ourselves, our coworkers, our staff personnel in general. So why I'm saying this is that in 2019, pre-COVID, a lot of organizations felt that they were trauma focused, meaning that they had things in places, they had EAP services, they had benefits, they had support, they had supervision in place, they had all these different things for if anything would occur. Fast forward to March 2020. And I saw organizations that were bold enough to state, hey, I have it, my organization have it, we're good. Look around and say, oh man, we do not have anything in place. I do not know how to support my clients. How do I engage my staff? How do I advocate for myself during this thing? And the issue that we're dealing with right now is the fact that all throughout this process, right? Throughout this process, we have seen that there is a lack of understanding of what a trauma-focused model looks like. So do you think that you need to have an implemented trauma focus within your business model? Absolutely. And this is the reason why. And we're going to go forward into the next slide to.
Oh, did I go back? I'm sorry.
So one of the things is that I'm big on quotes, right? And before we move into the process and understanding, one of the things that I want us to really get is that our past experiences speak to our decisions in everyday business. So if we ignore the event that happened to us and it has affected the way we engage our colleagues, our clients, our business in general, right? You're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you're going to be a business owner. You have to understand that your experiences are going to impact your decisions on a day-to-day basis within your business. Why? Why do I say that? If red is a color that you do not like, right? Or pink is a color that you do not like. These colors you have to understand that these things, because they're connected to something, an event that has happened, to make you dislike it, is going to come back during your business decisions. Meaning, so when you're going through the color palette and say, oh yes, because purple and yellow and stuff and red comes up, you are going to react the same way you react because you do not like something. And so every experience that we have, whether good or bad, is going to speak in the way we do business, the way we make decisions within our business. Even the work that you're passionate about is connected to an experience that you had. So it could have been directly impacting you, or it could have been something that impacted someone else, or something that has impacted the community, right? Our passion, our goals, our work environment really is structured and molded by the experiences that we have experienced. Next, please. So this is why it's important to engage. And like I mentioned before, and 2 slides ago, is when you are wanting to see the importance of implementing a trauma-focused approach into a business model, this is the reason why. You have to understand the importance of engagement, right? And I put this little lovely image on here because I really want us to take a moment to look at this. So the behavior engagement after a trauma, when we are impacted as a boss, as the CEO, as a founder, as a COO, as a CFO, any position that you have within an organization, right? And you have been impacted by, say, any traumatic experiences, right? We're going to continue to use COVID because it's very recent and everybody can understand what that is. Since you have been impacted by COVID, someone in your family has got it, someone you have experienced it, whatever it may be, you are now impacted by it. And so your behavior is going to be different in different ways, right? So why is the importance of engaging so crucial in the business model, right? Especially making a trauma-focused business approach, is because you have to understand why. How does this impact my engaging others, my behaviors with others? So as a business owner, I need to make sure that my business, that I achieve my goals, right? That I am a great leader, that I'm persistent in what I'm doing in the field. If you are a sole proprietor, right, an LLC, and for-profit organization, right, or for-profit company, you are basically wearing multiple hats in the beginning, right? And so if you are engaged into dealing with the COVID because of everything that has happened while still trying to run your business, you have to maintain this level of leadership, the persistence in order to market yourself, right? You have to then create this mastery level right? You have to have the wisdom and capability to even do the work that you're wanting to do. So you have to learn to being able to be engaged in that and maintain the same level throughout, despite the fact that you're being impacted, right? Despite the fact that you have been dealing with something that is difficult to process, because again, there is no book on how to deal with COVID-19 emotionally, because we're literally going through it right now, right? And so in it, then you're dealing with the next thing is the okay, so we have to make sure that our well-being, right? We have to create this work-life balance, because if I work too much and I put too many hours into this business, right? And I'm not taking care of my health, then I'm going to start feeling fatigue. I'm going to start feeling burnt out. I'm going to start feeling my energy is starting to go low, and I won't have the same energy and excitement on the business that you love so much, right? It's going to impact your connections, right? It's going to impact the way you connect with your loved ones, connect with the community that you're trying to impact. It's going to impact a lot of those connections, the everything that's connected to you. And it's going to impact the way you feel, right? You're going to feel this sense of um not belonging, right? And I know that it says positive engagement, but I want you to look here the negative aspect of it all. If we don't implement this, right? So if you don't implement a trauma focus, you're going to feel as if you don't belong in the field, as if you don't belong in with the other consultants or with the other nonprofits organization. You're going to feel as if, oh, they have something that I don't have, because of that, because your engagement to whatever it is you're dealing with, it hasn't been dealt with, because you're not trauma focused. You're not really understanding that aspect, right? It's going to affect your appreciation, right? The gratitude, right? The little things throughout this process, right? Your innovation, your creativity, your teamwork. And this one's very important, especially if you're looking at the 501c business structure, right? Um, the teamwork is so crucial when you're looking at the behavior engagement after a trauma, especially when you're really focusing on the engagement aspect. Teamwork from the top down is important. The nonprofit cannot work if the team does not know how to work with one another. And because of that, if any little thing impacts the teamwork, impacts the engagement within that process, you're going to have coworkers, staff members, not really engage and connect with each other. And because they're not connecting with each other, you're going to have disconnect, right? You're going to have inconsistency when you're doing supervision. You're going to have lack of reviews, right? Auditing is going to be a little bit off, and all these things, because the teamwork aspect of it all, the connection that of part is not there. It's just not there. So everything that I said, right? It sounds so negative. And this is why, right? We are no longer able to hide how we engage after a traumatic experience. Organizations aren't unable to function as they did pre-COVID without implementing some type of trauma training, some type of trauma focused approach to it. Because if they don't implement it, they are seeing that their teams, their colleagues, the connections, the feeling of belonging, right? The appreciation, the gratitude, all of these things, their own capability seems to be off. So they know something needs to be done. And that is why we are saying, if you're going to open a business, or if you have a business, you need to be trauma focused. You need to understand that, because it affects everything you do. So what does that look like when you're looking at a trauma focused business? Again, it is the opposite of everything I said. Your connection will be great. Your teamwork will work. Despite the fact that all people are different, the team will work because everyone is going to have this persistence, this capability, this gratitude, this feeling of belonging to the mission that you've created. Everyone is going to be flowing perfectly. So the engagement part of it, the connectivity aspect of it all, despite the trauma that we are all experiencing, right? At whatever level it is, you're going to see that a business that is trauma focused is more focused on who we are. This when we have been impacted in a way that we have no control over. A trauma is an impact that disrupts your day to day. It's something that happens. It can present itself within that minute, or it can come out a minute, a day, an hour, a week, a month, a year later. So it's an impact that happens to us. And so we have to always be ready as business owners, because we are having personnel who are different than us. So because they're different than us, we have to have a structure that works for everyone. So assessing, right? You have to assess the impact and reaction. We all dealt with COVID. The impact was hard, and our reaction was, okay, we need to make people remote, right? We need to make people remote. We have to make sure everyone's safe. We have to make sure that they're able to take care of themselves, but that they're able to still do the work, right? There are all these things where we assess the impact of the trauma of COVID, right? And we reacted the best way we could, remote. Hey, don't do this, you can go, blah, 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 blah. But when it came to dealing with our emotional side, our behavioral side, we didn't know how COVID impacted us. We really didn't talk about the depression, right? We didn't really talk about the feeling of not belonging. Oh my gosh, my persistent, I don't know how to be persistent in this field when I'm not able to engage with people face to face. I don't know how to be virtual. I didn't know how my business could be virtual, right? How do I do this? You know, and then you're starting to question your intellect, right? You're starting to question whether or not, well, am I really passionate about this? Do I have compassion towards my target population? Right? You start to question your level of creativity. You start to question whether or not you like your coworkers or your team or your staff, right? You start to question all these things. And no one really talked about this. So here you are functioning in a new world that has reacted to the impact of COVID externally, but no one really talked about the internal aspect of it all. And because of that, I'm not saying that your job needs to be a counseling center, right, for your staff at all times. I'm saying that you have to be mindful. You have to be mindful that there is so many people reacting to the impact in different ways that can impact your business. You can even impact your own business. You can start being too abrupt, right? You can start sounding a little bit bullying within your emails, right? You can start to feel like no one really understands your vision anymore, and you just have to make sure that they get it. And you just have to you start to feel all these different things because everything shifted. And so you're really reacting to the impact and not understanding that my behavior is off. My behavior is off. My engagement is off because I'm not dealing with this. And my business has not been focused on dealing with how to provide that support for myself, right? Advocating for myself, but how to support for my coworkers, my team players, my community, those people that I'm helping, right? So we're going to talk about the importance of it all, right? You have to have a great accountability partners, right? Board members, right? You have to have great supervisors, admin provider, you have to have great accountability with the people to make sure that we're all in alignment when we're talking about how to interact after an impact, right? The importance of engagement, right? You have to have a great accountability partner, a great accountability team, right? So more details, we're going to talk about a little bit more about this in our 2 o'clock session with Mrs. Veronica, right? She's going to talk a little bit more about the roles and responsibilities of a board and of just overall business, right? But I wanted to bring this up here so that you're able to understand the next session. Your team is so crucial. So if you have been impacted, if your team has been impacted, not if, they have been, right? Since they have been impacted, the thing that we have to deal with is my team, are my board members, is my staff still in alignment with the vision, with the mission, with the brand promise, with the organization promise, right? You have to, this is where a lot of the organizations have not really taken a step back and looked at this. We haven't done a reassessment on our vision, mission, and brand promise. We haven't really talked to our staff about this. What happens when you have been impacted by trauma? Our reactions are different, and our approach shifts. Our mentality shifts. How we see things shift. So you love chocolate, and after this pandemic, you could not stand it. The little things, or you eat the chocolate and like, I don't longer feel that sweet and comfort from it, right? Just it tastes okay. There's little things that have been occurring that have shifted our approach that we really haven't paid attention to. And so if our board, the board that you have, you haven't assessed where they're at in regards to their engagement, then that means that something is off with the board, right? If the board is not checking in on you, right, or you are checking on them, then something needs to be changed. Something needs to be done. So you need to make sure that at all times, your accountability, whether staff, board members, consultant, they all continue to align in a positive engagement with you and your organization. That is how you become trauma focused for your for-profit, nonprofit, whatever it is you're opening, right? And so we're going to go to the next slide, but I really want you to really focus on this. So we talked about the engagement part, right? We talked about the importance of it and how that looks like, and the importance of the reaction and things like that. But I want you really to look at why advocating is important. Advocating as a business owner, we forget ourselves at all times. And it is heartbreaking, because this is how we were trained. This is how we were taught, that when you are doing your own business, you have to put in the work, right? We left the 9 to 5 to work a 24-hour job. It's true. I mean, it's funny, but it's true. And so we are putting in the work and the work and the work. And so again, like we said, remember we talked about the work-life balance that needs to be, that is there, right? How we engaging, how we functioning, right? But the advocating aspect of it all, especially dealing with a trauma, you can talk about the COVID-19 being as a trauma. For some people say that they haven't been impacted, it's fine. Okay, the world has, and because the world around you has been impacted, it has shifted the way you can even do business, because you no longer can go into the school and say, hey guys, I'm doing this, and this, and then this stuff, the clients I want to see. You can no longer do those things. Everything has adjusted. And because it has adjusted, you had to adjust with it. So it has impacted the way you engage with others. So because of that, how do you advocate for yourself? How do you advocate for the things that you need for your business? How do you advocate for the things you need for your mental health, right? For your capability, for your capacity, right? And this is where we're talking about it here. So the self-advocacy, you have to make sure you have boundaries. The boundaries are very important. And when I say boundaries, people automatically think about boundaries with other people. I'm talking about boundaries with yourself. I would bring it back, boundaries with yourself, because you have to put boundaries with yourself. I will not do this. I will make sure that I don't take this. I'll make sure that this, right? You have to make sure that you do what, right? I will, so you have to understand your own boundaries. If you don't understand your own boundaries, how do you advocate? How do you ask for what you need? How do you ask for what your business needs? How do you ask for what your team needs? And a lot of organizations believe, oh no, I know what my team needs because we need more money, or we need to add a break, and we need to da da da. We tend to do the normal responses, right, to what we've been used to. We literally are functioning as if we were pre-COVID, during COVID. The system pre-COVID does not work. It does not work. And people are like, oh my gosh, she said, I can't. Yes, I'm telling you this. People can come to me, you can message me, you can email me. It does not work. If you think it works because you're doing it, I'm giving you 6 months. I'm giving you 6 months. You think it's functioning. Oh, it's so nothing has changed. I mean, yeah, we're doing hybrid, half in office, half on remote, but nothing has really changed other than that. I mean, everything is good. Okay, cool. Yep. So that means that when you're telling me that means that you're so disconnected from your staff. You're so disconnected from yourself, because you are not addressing the fact that you are dealing with probably with compassion fatigue. You're probably a little bit burned out. You're probably dealing with secondary trauma, right? Dealing with the emotional roller coasters of your staff and your coworkers, and you're taking it upon yourself, right? You are dealing with all these things, but you're functioning pre-COVID. Yeah, I'm concerned about your business. I'm concerned about your approach. Everybody has I'm building a business plan, and I'm doing the structure of my business, and this is how I want it to be, and this is how my onboarding process is, and all these different things. And I'm like, okay, where are you incorporating any trauma workplace training in here? Or where's the self-advocacy and I don't see it. Oh, it's not, I mean, why do I need to add that? Okay, cool. Yep, 6 months. 6 months. And I'm not trying to be mean about it. I just know what it is to talk to professionals who are telling me their organization doesn't get it. Their organization doesn't care. They don't care, right? Why did you open that business yourself, right? You were working with somebody else. Why did you open that business? And we forget that the reason why we left an organization was also because we felt that no one listened. We felt disconnected. We felt a lack of connectivity. We felt a lack of teamwork. We felt all these things. We felt no one was advocating for ourselves. We felt the lack of self-care, and there was a lack of boundaries. We felt all these things, and yet we open our own business and repeat the same thing we left and think that we're going to be different. You cannot have that mentality and implement the same approach that you left within your own business. It won't work. It won't work. So you need to have the boundaries. If you don't have your boundaries set from the beginning, anything is going to change you. Everything is going to impact you. You're going to keep going back and forth with this wave, with this like inconsistency, right? And you're not going to know how to just stand firm and who you are and what it is you're making sure you want to do and what you're not going to do. You're not going to understand that. And this is the issue that we have. So the next thing is the coaching and consult and counseling, right? This is also very important. People believe that they are fine. Oh, I have a mentor here, and I've asked questions there, and oh yes, the said everything is good. And I'm just like, oh God, please listen to me. You cannot function with this. We are no longer in the 1940s, in the 1960s, where we just like, oh yeah, everything's fine. We're just gonna keep going and stuff. We are dealing with so much on a day-to-day basis. Our capacity is at a max, and we are functioning on that on a day-to-day basis, right? We're dealing with so much physically. We're dealing with so much psychologically. We're dealing with so much emotional, spiritual impact, right? Personal, professional, all these things. We are dealing with so much. And you think you don't need someone for yourself, for your team? It is very important. And this is very different from supervision. I want you to know, because supervision was created for the individual to be supervised in their work environment, to see if they're doing the work right. It's just make sure that they are providing the services that they're needing to do, to make sure that the individual is aligned with the organization, and that they are conducting themselves appropriately and making sure that they meet the bottom line. That is what supervision is. You cannot put supervision as part of your coaching and support for yourself. It does not work, which is why individuals, colleagues, co-workers are not feeling supported. People believe that supervision is there for that, and that is not what they're there for. That is not the job of the supervisor. That is not the job of anybody else. You need to have someone specifically to provide that sense of coaching and consulting services and counseling support for your team, for yourself, for your organization in general. So the advocating for this comes with, what did you need when you were in a business, when you were working for someone else? Didn't you need someone to talk to? Didn't you need someone to understand so that they can advocate for you? So that they can change, that understand the hours, they can change and understand the importance of salary, they can understand and change the point of how we're connecting with your clients. If you needed this in your own, when you were working with others, why don't you think that you're going to need someone to advocate for you, advocate for your team? It helps. And again, I'm going to say it again, supervisors are not advocates for you. They're not supposed to help you with your psychological. That is not their job. They're not supposed to help you with the emotional. That is not their job. They're not supposed to help you with your personal. That is not their job. That's not their job. So being trauma focused in the organization is a crucial part of being a functioning organization, right? So self-care, hope, and business mentality. This is very important. The self-care is, again, looking at the wheel, the self-care wheel, which is great. I don't know if you can see the information. I know they're small, but you can see it here, and it says, like, for example, right? You are dealing with some physical stuff, right? And you're dealing with, how do you take care of yourself physically? Well, my self-care physically will be to turn off my cell phone, to make sure that I get some me time, to take a walk. Am I getting enough sleep? Right? Your psychological needs. How will be, you can implement a self-care routine with, self-reflection. Therapy, please. There is a stigma in the world that therapy is bad and all this thing. That's fine. Okay, so you don't want to see a therapist. Okay, let's talk to a coach. Again, coaches are amazing. They implement a consultants who are coaches, please understand there's two differences. Consultants who have a coaching aspect to their business is very crucial because they're going to consult you to make sure that you're moving forward in this trajectory, make sure your vision and mission and brand promise is still aligned with what you're doing, with your passion, all these things. But the coaching aspect is to make sure, hey, how are you feeling? How are you dealing with that? I know that you got a rejection letter with this grant, and I know that that was impactful. Okay, so how are you feeling about that? I know that a lot of people who get that rejection letter, again, we're moving forward, right? That's the consulting aspect. You're doing the coaching. I know a lot of people that get this rejection, start to question whether or not they're really good at their business. And I want you to know that it happens. This happens all the time. So how do we fix this for later, right? This is the point the consultant who is a coach does. That is a difference, right? Because in therapy, it is more of self. It's more of self. Therapy focuses on your psychological needs for your personal needs, right? I need you to understand that. If for the business, you need a consultant who is a coach, a consultant who has a coaching aspect, a consultant who is a business consultant, but also a consultant that has the behavioral aspect to it. Because you want to have these two components mixed together to be able to function. I'm telling you, people, I need you to hear me, that in the end, a healthy person, a healthy business is someone who understands every component of their organization, of their business structure. There are the different phases of the business. And you're going to hear about that more in the 2 o'clock session, right? You're going to hear about the different phases and how you build, and everything goes and stack up and builds and on top of one another. So because of that, you have to make sure that in every step, in every phase of the business, you are addressing the needs of each section. Okay. So the hope as an advocate is that you maintain this sense of connectivity, the sense of support, the sense of innovation, the sense of wisdom and work-life balance, and all these different things, while maintaining their self-care, right? So a lot of us, right, professionally, have been impacted, right? And so great self-care tips is, you could take time for lunch. I don't know if you noticed, as remote workers, I know that hopefully is by the time, people hear this video, maybe 2-3 years from now, people are like, remote working, what is that? Right? But right now we're remote. We're this hybrid mentality, people working from home and then from the office, right? And because a lot of people are working from home, they forget to take breaks. They forget to take a moment to eat. They forget to take a moment. What was normal in the office? Oh, I have a 15-minute break. Oh, I can go and get some water or coffee in the break room. Tina is calling me in her office. Okay, well, before I go to her office, I'm going to go to the restroom. We used to have these things naturally implemented in our day-to-day, right? But now that we're remote, we sit in front of a computer and we sit and we sit and we sit and we sit. We do not take the breaks that we need. So the business mentality is, when you're doing that, is that the business is more important than yourself. The business is more important than your self-care. The business is more important than everything. And that is a habit I do not want us as business owners to implement for our for-profit, our nonprofit. I don't want you to implement it for your staff, for your colleagues, for the community you're serving. I do not want that, because then what we are continuing to show is that self-care doesn't matter, that you don't matter, that the boundaries for yourself and your self-care and your mentality and all these things does not matter. And I don't want us to keep going in this circle where we continue to be burned out and have this lack of consistency with our staff, because we are comfortable and we have normalized a revolving door. Oh, these people burn out. Oh, they quit. Oh, I hire new people. Oh, they quit. And we normalize this so much right? And so the hope comes from, if we implement a trauma focused approach, we're no longer going to have this revolving door, because people are going to understand, no, 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 organization cares because I bought into this organization. I bought into this because I believe in the mission. I believe in the mission. And so because I believe in the mission, I know what they stand for. So I'm here because of that. So as an organizational leader, right, as a business owner, you have to make sure that that hope is always there for your staff. It's always there for you, so that you can continue to move forward in this business, so that you know how to continue to advocate for the hope that this is okay, that we are doing great, that we are healthy, that we are good, right? So the mentality is that we have to make sure that we are important, right? We make sure we understand that the advocating is important. The engagement after an impact, before or after, it's still important, right? During the process, whatever it is you're dealing with, the engagement is important as well. So we're going to move to the next slide. And so with that, we are going to go into the question and answer portion. And I really want us to take a moment and reflect. So I know that there's some questions that they were going to be asked. And I just want us to, you can write your questions in the chat. You can send your questions via email. If you need more clarification, we are going to provide our information, but I just want to make sure that you understand the purpose of being trauma focused, that you understand the purpose of functioning in a level that highlights the needs of not only your business, but highlights the need of yourself, right? You are very, very important. So I know that we should so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get questions and go from there. So I think Veronica's gonna ask me the first one.
Yes. And so what we have coming up first goes back to the beginning of the presentation when you were talking about engaging positively. So what are the short and long-term consequences if we don't engage positively with our board, partners, coworkers, staff?
Great question. Thank you so much. Yes, so the short-term consequences, right, if we don't engage positively with our board or partners, is that it's actually going to affect so I would say that the short-term consequences for boards and partners, if we don't engage, is positively, is it's the fact that your people you're going to start feeling inconsistency. You're going to see the inconsistency in the workload, in the way your returns are coming, right? You may not have the amount of businesses partnerships that you want, or the enough clients that you said that you were going to be able to target during this process, right? All these things are going to happen, right? And so what happens is that is a short term. It starts little, it starts small, and it starts with people feeling upset, people dealing with so many things, the company doesn't care, all these stuff. And then the long term for that is that your board, that your staff member actually they are looking for to quit, right? They no longer want to be part of the board, or they're no longer active, right? They're not showing up to the meetings. They're not connecting as they should, right? The staff, the personnel is like not truly engaging. They're just barely doing what that needs to be done, right? So that is a very important one, right? That question was so great. Thank you so much, whoever sent that in. But the short and long-term consequences of not engaging positively with your board and partners is that you at some point, the vision, the mission, and the board and the brand promise is ignored, right? It starts to diminish, and so your passion and your connectivity with them starts to go away because now you're not aligned. You're no one is aligned, and in order to function, right, to move forward, to be in an active, you have to be aligned and understand from the top down what needs to happen, right? um the next question, I think we have another question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it's crucial also because before, during, and we're still going through the pandemic, things have been gradual.
Mhm.
And so if we're not self-aware of the way that we're reacting to people, and that kind of leads to the next question, apart from the engagement, the next question is, how do we learn to address the impact in our reaction to others? How do we take that responsibility?
That's a great question. Thank you so much. um so how do we learn to address the impact of our reactions to other, right? Okay, so the first part of the question I want to address, we learn to address the impacts and reaction of others by being aware that something is off, right? How do we learn to do that? We need to learn to do that because if we know that in your business you are um selling t-shirts, you're selling t-shirts, right? You can be a for-profit selling t-shirts, and not necessarily, I mean, people are like, oh, this is only for people who are connecting with um clients, like in depth. No, no, no. Even if you're selling t-shirts, you need to learn on how to address the impact of our reactions with others, because that means when I'm selling t-shirts, I need to make sure that my reaction to those that are purchasing it is like, okay, so they need to see the value in that. What is that? What is their reaction? Okay, so they're dismissive. Okay, why are they dismissive? Like, you have to understand, you have to take time, right? Time to analyze, right? Time to analyze what implementing a trauma focused approach to the business model, right, looks like. What you have to take time to see, okay, well, why would this be important here, right? If you're looking at a business from a for-profit, right, but now looking at it a nonprofit, now your organization is helping the youth by implementing sports, right? Sports in that targets activities to reduce whatever. I mean, I don't care, whatever it is you want to do, right? So then you need to understand, to learn to address, well, how um like what impacts, right, and reactions to other, how do I address that? Like, how do I learn to make sure that I'm addressing the impact and reaction of these kids, right? Well, not only the kids, but the staff who are serving the kids. So you need to know, well, what is the impact? So you need to address, what is the external impacts that are currently visible. Okay, we're dealing with the pandemic. Okay. Oh, we're dealing with Asian crimes, victims. We're dealing with a high number of trafficking um, um, population. Oh, we're dealing with a migration issue. Okay, we're dealing with student loan. Okay, we're dealing with. You have to address the different events that can impact us, or what are impacting us right now. You have to understand what it is your community is experiencing. You cannot implement an intervention without knowing what the issue is. You cannot understand the reaction of others if you don't know what the issue is. So again, take time to know what the issues are. Take time to know that. And so how do we take the responsibility of these reactions to trauma? How do we take the responsibilities, right, for these reactions to trauma? Well, again, if we don't know the external impacts, we're not going to understand the reactions. We're not going to understand that Tina needs to take a break every week. She cannot work 4 days a week or 5 days a week anymore. She can only do 3 days. Why? What is the why? Why is that reaction there? Well, what impacted her? Okay, so it was too much. Working remote was too much, and she has 4 kids. Okay, so she can only give us 3 days. She can only give us 3 days out of the 5. Okay, and you're working with Tina because Tina's still giving you great work, right? And that's another thing. People believe that some organization are not adjusting. That people are actually giving you the same product, the same efforts in less time, because now they're functioning in the level that they adjust for themselves. And so people are like, no, I want to work 3 days instead of 5. And people are like, no, but the job is 5 days. I understand, but I'm giving you 3 days worth of work, right? 5 days worth of work in 3 days. I'm giving you the same product, right? And organizations are not adjusting to that, right? So you also need to learn that part. We'll talk about that in part 2 of our webinar series, right? But the responsibilities it's our responsibility to understand that these reactions are tied back to a trauma, right? So Tina needs 3 days instead of 5. So Tina was fine before. Why is it different now? Okay, well, we're dealing with a pandemic. Okay, the kids are doing the hybrid as well because they're in school for 2 days and home for 3, right? So that is an impact to her reaction of why she's asking for 3 days instead of 5 days. Okay, so and it's a lot of mentality, like thinking of things mentally, right? You have to take mental capacity to do this because now we are actually having to adjust and not just do a cookie cutter approach to everybody. You have to understand now, oh, Tina is experiencing it this way because Todd actually is okay. And he is actually wanting to come to the office 5 days a week. Like he does not want to work at home. He wants to go into the office. Okay, these are 2 different things. The Tina is fine working from home. So you have to address, okay, so what is that? So then Todd means that his trauma, whatever it is, his escape is actually going to the office. Because Todd has 4 kids too, right? I'm just throwing the kids out there. Not saying that they're bad or anything like that, but I'm just giving it for the capacity, right? But Todd has 4 kids. And for him, going into the office allows him to have the sense of normalcy, right? He's still giving the work. He's there, right? But he is functioning at a different level. Todd and Tina are different. So our job as bosses is to make sure that whatever it is that we're doing within our business, that we understand and we're careful and just and grateful, right? When we have our staff, we have to understand where they're at. We have to adjust. Okay, well, do you still believe in the mission? What is it about the mission that is a little bit off right and makes you uncomfortable right now? Like, and so with everything going on, what do you think the mission is? Like, is it still aligning with your values? And is it still aligning with what your beliefs are? Like, and how do you feel like you can implement this approach in a better way than what we were having to do before? Like asking these things are important because when you ask these questions, you then are able to create a trauma-informed approach within your organization because you are now looking at it from a structural level and now taking it into consideration. Okay, I'm now addressing the behavior. I'm now addressing the impact, and I'm also addressing the trauma itself, right? And so then you are becoming more and more informed. You're then becoming more and more able to focus and implement this focus approach of trauma within every step of the business, with every personnel within your business. And you are then going to be able to see more more of a flow, right? Some people believe that being too trauma informed is a bad thing. And I believe the people that are saying that is because they don't understand the purpose of it. When people hear trauma informed, they automatically believe mental health and people talking about their mental health all the time. Trauma comes before mental health. Say it again. Trauma comes before mental health. So by addressing these things, we are creating an intervention that will impact the individual so that they don't deal with depression, when they don't deal with anxiety, when they don't deal with lack of communication, when they're dealing with isolation. We are actually creating an intervention within our business structure so that it doesn't impact our productivity. It doesn't impact our bottom line. We are dealing with the trauma itself at front so that we know that our staff members and ourselves, we are aligned with it. So we are not going to be dealing with so and so and so. So that is why I believe that is the reason why we have to learn to address the impact and the reactions, why we need to understand the responsibility to understanding the reactions on what that looks like within trauma. This is very important. You have to understand these approaches, because if you don't, then you're going to be implementing another cookie cutter approach, and then you're going to continue to have this revolving door, and you're going to be dealing with more people dealing with compassion fatigue and burned out, and then you're then not having to, so many organizations are closing early. There used to be nonprofits used to be 9 to 4 or 9 to 5 or whatever it was, and now organizations are closing early because they don't have that many personnel. And two, they have adjusted the fact that they cannot do a 9-hour, 10-hour thing anymore. They're like, listen, we can only do 5. So a lot of adjustment is happening because they're becoming aware. Well, how do I address this? I learned to do this because I'm addressing the needs. I'm looking at the impact. I'm looking at the reaction that I have been dealing with myself, and I'm looking at the responsibility that I have to my staff because of this trauma. So I hope I answered that question.
Yes, I think you had answered the question, and it's really interesting because, the whole thing about normalizing the turnover and the revolving door is something that really speaks to me in my experience too. Just taking back and looking at that and thinking, wow, we really did normalize that. And now it's not okay. And so, what are we doing to take care of each other?
Yeah, definitely.
So, and that kind of goes into the next question that has come up, which is why are boundaries so important? And I know you addressed this a little bit earlier, but do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, why boundaries are so important. If the boundaries are so important, is because you cannot say yes to everything. You cannot say yes to everything. You cannot say yes to everything, because if you say yes to everything, you do not have time for yourself. You are then saying to everybody else, they are important. Everything else, they are important. I am just here to be the host of this TV show, right? Whatever you want, whatever you need. Boundaries for as business entrepreneurs, right? As CEOs and founders and CFOs and blah blah blah, all these things, right? Whatever role you're in, either in a for-profit or nonprofit, boundaries are important because you have to make sure you're advocating for yourself. And in order to advocate for yourself, you cannot go in to a meeting with Walmart or a meeting with Target or a meeting with Marshalls or Ross or whatever clothing organization and say, hey, I want you to tell me what you think I need for my organization. What? Why are people dictating what you need? It shouldn't be that way, right? So, and it takes it to an extreme level when you really look at it that way. You're like, man, I mean, I would never ask Walmart or Target to tell me what I need in my organization or in my life. They don't know me, but yet we allow things like that all the time because we have no boundaries for ourselves. We are literally giving the power to other people to say, you can disrupt my 9 to 5. You can cut my lunch short. You can take away my lunchtime. You can take away my my restroom break. You can take away my weekend. You can take away my time with my partner. You can take away my time with my children. You can. We are literally giving power to other people in situations when we don't have boundaries for ourselves. So the boundaries are important because we dictate. We will not allow people to take the time from 4 to 6 p.m. That time is for me and my kids, or that time is for me and my partner. Every day at 12 o'clock, from 12 to 1 o'clock is my lunch break. I don't care if the world is going to fire and going on fire. Like, that is my lunch break, right? There is, I'm going to use the restroom. I need to use the restroom every 2 hours. Okay, so I need to make sure I use the restroom every 2 hours. No one's going to take that because they don't, you see how the boundaries are so important, because then we take control of what we are, who we are, and what we need. And we no longer give that power to someone else. We take that power back for ourselves. And that's
that's
why it's so
really
important.
hard.
It's very hard.
I was gonna say it's really hard as new entrepreneurs
Mhm.
and CEOs of nonprofits, because we're building our team, we're building our business, we're building our outreach, and especially if we're going beyond our local community, we've
Mhm.
got all these different time zones, and
Oh,
we're
yeah.
trying to accommodate for that, and be there to have those conversations. So it's really good to hear, um, just to hear the lesson
Yeah.
about boundaries.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not going to say that it's easy, because we have been conditioned to give people power of our time and give people power of our lives. So I understand. I understand that, and which is why a lot of people, when they retire, or a lot of people get so burned out that they went to school for engineering, right? And because they loved it so much, and their boundaries were not set right, to the point that they're so burned out that they rather go and cut the lawn, right? I'm not saying anything of this is wrong, but this is what a lot of the things that I'm seeing. We are seeing a lot of people leave the field because it is too much. It is not that it's too much, it's just our boundaries were never there. Our boundaries were never there. And then our boundaries were never respected. And so as business owners, we have to make sure that, yes, people are signing up and saying, I'm going to take this position within my organization. And they're saying yes to this dress, right? Yes to this dress. Yes to the business. Yes to this, right? They're saying yes. And then, but we also have to respect their boundaries, because if we do not respect who they are, we do not respect what they need to function and provide me with what I need for my own business, then what I'm doing is I'm then having to schedule this on my planner, that in about 1.5 years, I'm going to have to replace this person because they're going to quit. And you have to have that in the back of your mind, because you are not being fair to the staff members, because you're not respecting their time and their boundaries. So they know that they can only do this for a certain amount of time. And because they can only do this for a certain amount of time, they're only going to invest this amount of time into your company. But then later on, you're going to you're feeling this movement. People are doing great. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, Tina quit. Oh yeah, Todd quit. And you're like, wait, what? It's because we have to respect these boundaries for them. Yes, our passion built this business, but the people that bought into your business is what makes a business function. And so you have to be mindful of that. You have to remember that. This is why you have to be trauma informed. You have to be trauma focused, because you have to remember that your passion is not the only thing fueling this business. Is their works towards that passion. So the boundaries are important, because you need to know what you need, but you also have to respect what they need as well.
It's such a different mindset that it's just really helpful to just hear and you know, and talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
So, Dr. Lennon, we have one last question.
Okay.
And we talked about this earlier, but if you could expound on the difference between counseling and coaching. As CEO, do I truly need both?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, thanks for coming, guys. Yep, that's my answer. That's my only answer. Yes, 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 yes. I have been a consultant for a while now, and what I've seen is people when they're like, "Oh, well, okay, listen, we'll do this for a little bit. We'll see how this goes," right? Because they don't trust. They're like, "Well, what is it about?" I'm like, "Just trust me. Just trust me. Just give me 2 weeks. Give me 2 weeks." Sometimes I give people a week. Sometimes give them a month, because sometimes it's just the bigger than the need. Also the resistance. But I told them, just give me 2 weeks. Just give me 2 weeks. And so I'm laughing because they're so used to moving forward as a business owner, right? They're so used to checking in on everything else, and they're so used to doing that, and they're so used to working and working and working. And then all of a sudden they get a text from me, "Hey, how's your day going? Hey, how was your meeting today?" Right? And they're like, "Wait, what?" And, "Oh, it went well. Thank you for asking." "Oh, okay. Yeah, I was just thinking about you." And da-da-da. So, I know that you had this meeting with the staff member about their time schedule, and and how you were going to approach that. I know that there was a little tension there or whatever, or but I wanted to check in with you. How's that going? "Oh man, that was hard actually. Thank you so much. But your ideas were so good." And I'm like, "Okay, great. All right. So how are you feeling now that you've done that meeting?" I feel like, and then so you're talking with them. You're talking with them. You're addressing that. And at the end of the conversation, we part ways. And in the end, like it always baffles me, right? Because I know that my phone in about an hour or two is gonna get a message that says, "Wow, thank you for doing that, man." It feels so different knowing someone is checking in on me. The purpose of having a consultant that provides coaching is it's not only having that support, right? That's often not there, but it's also saying to make sure, hey, this is what my staffs are dealing with, right? And I know that you and I are talking about this business strategy, and we want to implement ABC, right? ABC, right? We're trying to implement ABC, and the issue about it all is that we're trying to implement a new department code or whatever, and so I feel like there's going to be resistance towards it. What do you think? Well, let me talk to your staff. Let's do a couple coaching sessions with your staff. And so what happens is, not only am I supporting the business owner about how she's going to implement this, or how they're going to implement this business model and stuff into the business, but I'm also not going to be checking with the staff to make sure that they align with what's happening. They align with the new changes, right? And so because of that, I then go in and say, "Okay, guys, everything is great. This looks amazing. We're feeling good. Everyone's still on the same page." So the coaching part of the consultant is so important, because the difference between it is counseling is personal, is individual. Coaching is holistically. We are addressing the issue holistically. Oh, you're dealing with this personally, or you're dealing with this professionally, or you're dealing with this spiritually, or you are dealing with all of this holistically, and providing feedback as to the forward movement approach, right? So the counseling is very private. It's very private. And because it's very private, I cannot share. I cannot even tell you what the business is telling us to do. I can't even say, okay, well, I know that the business hired me to provide ABC and to make sure that you are aligned with ABC. That's not my job as a counselor. Is, well, how are you doing? What's going on? And if we focus on your personal, right? So the coaching is very important. Coaching and consulting is very important, especially as new business owners or organizational owners that have been in functioning less than 5 years. If you want, like, even people with 10-year plus in the business, they need the coaching and consulting services for sure. Especially if we're incorporating that trauma focus component to this. So yes, you really do need both. You really do need both. The EAP, right? The EAP services, the benefits that people, sending them, providing that services for your staff so that they can go counselor, go to therapy or whatever, is important. That's great. I believe you always should have a coach and a therapist. I believe in it wholeheartedly. I tell people this all the time in all my platforms, personally, professionally. It is good to have both. Business side, it is important to have a consultant and a coach. You have to have both. It is important. So hopefully that answered your question. But yes, that is definitely the purpose of that.
Thank you. And we're going to talk a bit more about that in the afternoon session too, about what a consultant does.
Mhm.
But I'm glad that you were able to bring in the coaching side of it, especially with the duration of how long you've had the business or what stage that you're in. Well, Dr. London, that concludes all the questions that we have in the queue, and concludes our time, at least, unless you had something else that came up while you were speaking you would like to add.
Yes, if you can go to the next slide. I want us to this is always important. I do this on all the trainings that I provide, and it's basically a reminder, right? It is a reminder that the road to positive engagement and a trauma-focused advocacy within the workplace is being intentional when it's hard. You have to be intentional about your boundaries. You have to be intentional about making sure that you advocate for yourself. You have to be intentional about making sure that you engage properly after being impacted by trauma, or your reactions, right? Your behavior reactions have to be, you have to know what you're doing or what you're saying and how you're approaching. Have you become aggressive with your staff? Have you become aggressive with yourself? Have you been not kind to yourself and not giving yourself the entitlement of that comes with a work-life balance, right? You have to ask these things for yourself, right? Being intentional is key with this, especially understanding the engagement and the advocacy aspect of it all. So don't give up on yourself, no matter how uncomfortable it gets, because it gets uncomfortable because you're doing something that's different. So in the beginning, it's going to be uncomfortable. So you have to make sure that you're uncomfortable with that and be okay. And just keep pushing forward. Be okay and push forward, right? You are an entrepreneur, so you have to believe it. This is your business. This is yours. This is your for-profit, nonprofit. This is the idea is yours. The passion is yours. The way you engage, it's yours. This is all yours. So what are you going to do for yourself? All right. How are you going to engage with yourself? Are you going to be intentional with yourself? Are you going to be kind to yourself? Because you have to be kind. There are going to be days that you don't do the right thing. There are going to be days that you don't take that lunch. There are going to be days that you don't take that bath and break when you need it, right? Because you're so work focused, right? So you're going to have that grace with yourself and say, man, I should have done better. And it's okay. The next day you do better, right? That's why you have to be okay. That's why you have to be intentional. That's why you have to understand that in all of this, you have to believe that you are the entrepreneur. So you have to trust the process of understanding the engagement, the process of understanding the advocacy, the process of in making sure that your team aligns with a trauma-focused approach, the process of that you need to align with why a trauma-focused approach is beneficial for you so that you don't burn out, so that you don't feel compassion fatigue, so that your business doesn't shut down. This is why you have to trust the process. Be intentional. Be intentional and be okay being uncomfortable, because in the end, you are the entrepreneur and this process is for you. It's not for anybody else.
I love it. I mean, I think that, it really goes back to understanding why we started our businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And, and what do we do? And I know that's part of what we're going to talk about in the afternoon session too. So I think this is a great lead in to that part, and looking forward to engaging with everybody this afternoon.
So the next slide is the information about the next. So the next session is coming up at 2:00. And it's 2 to 4, and that will be focusing on the nonprofit organization aspect. Why did you choose a nonprofit, create a nonprofit, the roles and responsibilities of a nonprofit, all of that. There is the Alarcon Consulting will be presenting, right? Veronica Alarcon, CEO of Alarcon Consulting, and her email is consulting.alarcon@gmail.com. That is her phone number. I will provide my information at the end of the training so you guys can have my information so you can reach out to me. So thank you so much. And I hope you all have a great morning, and we see you at 2:00 for the next session. Bye-bye.